Broca's area is the part of the brain responsible for speech. Identified by a French neurosurgeon in the 1850s named Paul Broca, hence the name, while examining the brains of patients with language challenges. I'm a little curious about the nature of this discovery, like the moral nature. Was he just kind of digging around the brains? I don't know. Maybe our professor can enlighten us a little bit more on that. The complicated nonsense location, and by that I mean if you haven't taken like any sort of anatomy or physiology class, it's really difficult to distinguish where it is the left hemisphere located in the lower portion of the frontal lobe. I think an easier way to explain it is just like this. Right about here. It controls not just the motor functions associated with speaking, like mouth and vocal cords, but also, and something I think is really interesting, your ability to process the the speech coming into your brain, what we hear, and then also the speech or words that we want to leave our brain in the form of an audible language. I'd imagine if that was all messed up, this would have been a lot harder for me to explain to you, or rather, if you guys had something wrong with it, it'd be a lot harder for you to understand what I'm saying, and that's what the next person is going to explain.
Damages in Broca's area can result in disorders such as Broca's aphasia or aphasia, Broca's aphasia. And if you have Broca's aphasia, this would affect your speech and your comprehension issues. With your speech, you may have a harder time forming complex sentences, and you may also have a hard time forming what you want to say in your head and then relate it outside and then form the words to say it. Oftentimes, when you have a Broca's aphasia, you would be able to form sentences up to around 4 words. So that is related to speech issues. So on a comprehension level, you would also have problems comprehend what other people tell you. For example, sentences such as Mary gave John balloons is definitely easier to comprehend for a person with Broca's aphasia compared to the balloons were given to John by Mary. Oftentimes that person will question who gave the balloon to who and who's receiving the balloon. A good way to solve this problem if you have Broca's aphasia is oftentimes with speech-language therapy. Sometimes it can heal by itself depending on the type of damage on Broca's area. Okay.
Hi, we're doing the occipital lobe. It is located in the back of the cerebral cortex. So above your brainstem, you have your cerebellum in the back, and it rests right above the cerebellum. So it actually controls all functions associated with vision. And what happens is it receives input from the thalamus, and the thalamus will decipher color, motion, and orientation. Then it takes that information that it receives from the thalamus, and it sends the information one of 2 different directions. It can either send it through a ventral stream, and that will decipher what it is before going to your temporal lobe, or it can go through a dorsal stream, and that will decipher the location before going to the parietal lobe.
Also, with the occipital lobe, there are a couple disorders. We have some vision loss, we have complete blindness, you can also get color blindness, and also hallucinations. Some of the impacts that can trigger these disorders are car accidents was the main one, contact sports, so anything like baseball, football, basketball, soccer, anything that you can ultimately just get hit in the back of the head. Falls, so like if you trip and fall, you can hit a certain spot on the back of your head, which will cause vision loss, and also firearms. You can just get shot in the back of the head and have vision loss. some ways to prevent this is to wear helmets, wear seatbelts, make sure that there's just safety around that part of the head so that none of these disorders can happen.